The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the ECAT staff or board of directors.
Who wants to be a servant? Raise your hand. All right then, well, seeing none, it seems we need to talk about this on today's edition of Liberty at Home. Hello everyone, I'm Pastor Adam Riveiro of the Liberty Baptist Church in Easton, and I'm so glad you joined us for today's edition of Liberty at Home. As always, we're broadcasting from Easton, Massachusetts, the birthplace of the Commonwealth's 35th governor, Oliver Ames. And on today's episode, we're moving ahead in our study of Psalm 119 by reading verses 121 through 128. So let's read them together. I have done judgment and justice. Leave me not to mine oppressors. Be surety for thy servant for good. Let not the proud oppress me. Mine eyes fail for thy salvation, and for the word of thy righteousness. Deal with thy servant according unto thy mercy, and teach me thy statutes. I am thy servant. Give me understanding, that I may know thy testimonies. It is time for thee, O Lord, to work, for they have made void thy law. Therefore I love thy commandments above gold, yea, above fine gold. Therefore, I esteem all thy precepts concerning all things to be right, and I hate every false way. When I prepare for an episode of Liberty at Home, there are times that a single verse or a cluster of verses grab my attention. But then there are other times when it seems like a word or words come up over and over and over again. And this is the case with this section of verses, as the word servant seemed to leap right off the page at me. The psalmist calls himself a servant in verses 122, 124, and 125. And while the word servant is found 13 times in the 176 verses of this psalm, the highest concentration of references to being a servant are found right here in this text today, 3 verses out of 4 verses in a row. The psalmist, with all of his spiritual insight and knowledge, has no trouble regarding himself as a mere servant. One reason why I think it's good for us to take a couple minutes to talk about being a servant is because, well, who wants to be a servant? Far more people want to lead than to be led, and a greater number of people enjoy giving the orders than taking them. Really, it boils down to this. People don't like being told what to do. Yet the psalmist had the humility to be able to say that God was supreme in his life and that he was content. No, he was happy to do what his master told him to do. It reminds me of a quote from the classic author Andrew Murray, who said, "Here is the path to the higher life. Down, lower down. Just as water always seeks and fills the lowest place, so the moment God finds men abased and empty, his glory and power flow in to exalt and to bless." You see, servanthood isn't weakness. It's actually the path to strength. Mark 9, verse 35 says, "And he," meaning Jesus, "sat down and called the 12, the disciples, and saith unto them, If any man desire to be first, the same shall be last of all and servant of all." You see, in God's kingdom, the way up is down. The path to glory is submission, and the key to greatness is servanthood. In the world, this doesn't make any sense. Yet in God's kingdom, it makes perfect sense when we remember who our master is, the almighty eternal God of heaven. You see, I believe we have difficulty with service to God because when we think of service, we consider our flawed leaders, the boss at work, the teacher at the school, the government official, and yes, even the pastor are all leaders who are flawed in some way because we're all human and weak. Yet that's not God. He's omnipotent, which means he's all-powerful. He's omniscient, which means he's all-knowledgeable. And he's omnipresent, which means he's everywhere. Not only that, but according to the psalm we just read, verse 122 says he's strong. Verse 124 says he's merciful. And verse 128 says he's holy. And of course, that's just the tip of the iceberg. This is a God who is worthy to be followed. So today, consider these words of servitude from the greatest king who ever lived, King Solomon. In Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6, he said this, "Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths." You can be sure, as you serve him, that he'll lead you down the right path. Well, as always, I want to thank you for watching Liberty at Home. And if you've been blessed by this episode, I believe you'd receive an even greater blessing by visiting Liberty Baptist Church. We meet every Sunday and Wednesday at 800 Washington Street, right here in Easton. You can check us out online at mylibertybaptist.org for more information. Well, it's time to sign off for today, so I'll leave by reminding you that where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. I'm Pastor Adam Riveiro, and I'll see you next week here on ECAT on Liberty at Home.